Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our session today. My name is Danny Anzueto. I welcome all pronouns. I serve as a community and volunteer manager with StartOut. For those of you that this might be their first time being a part of a StartOut program, StartOut accelerates the growth of LGBTQ plus community to drive economic empowerment, building a world where every LGBTQ plus entrepreneur has equal access to lead, succeed, and shape the workforce of the future. Through that work, we get to have amazing partnerships and put on events like we have today. And so I'm excited to turn the floor over to Brandon Mahoney, co-founder and president of LaunchPoint Labs. From strategic branding to targeted sales and marketing, LaunchPoint Labs team empowers companies to unlock their full potential. And we're grateful to have you here for the assessing financial health of your business. If anybody has any technical issues or questions, please feel free to reach out to the StartOut programming chat. I will be in the background for any help that you all need. But Brandon, please take it over.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. And hi, everyone. Thrilled to be here. And thank you for joining us today. And welcome to StartOut's 1-hour workshop on assessing the financial health of your business, powered by LaunchPoint Labs. My name is Brandon. I go by he, him. And I'm thrilled to be your host. I will forewarn all of you right now, I do have a tendency to get pretty excited when hosting these workshops and have a hard time not letting that show. So be prepared for a ton of really lame jokes. I don't think I've seen anyone laugh at a single joke I've told during a workshop ever. So hoping to continue that going on. But I love working with entrepreneurs. Honestly, you're some of the most incredible people in the world. I love what all of you are doing. It's incredible. It really is, and I hope that you all feel the same way about yourselves. This is an amazing journey that you're embarking on. So who is LaunchPoint, and why were we trusted to run this workshop? The LaunchPoint team has been working with entrepreneurs for well over a decade. We have a decade of experience working with entrepreneurs, helping them grow their businesses from the ground up. And we do this through a variety of services, from hands-on one-on-one support to workshops like the one you're hopefully about to enjoy. My team and I have a great deal of experience because we've also lived the lives of entrepreneurs. We've seen it firsthand, having launched our own businesses in the past. We know how stressful it can be, and we know that stress is going to be around for a long time. This journey can be terrifying. That's why we're here to present this workshop. We want to help each of you feel better prepared to tackle today and tomorrow. Our goal here is at the end that you're going to be able to make the best decisions for yourself and your business with the data to back you up. So what do we have to look forward to today? Unfortunately for you, you're going to have to listen to me talk quite a lot because there is a lot to cover, but rest assured this is being recorded and we're more than happy to follow up with anyone after the workshop as well. I'm going to walk you through how to assess the current financial status of your business, how things are actually going. Then I'm going to explain how to begin to project out your financial position based on how you're currently trending so that you can make decisions for the future based on data. Finally, I'm going to walk through some strategies to assess the current market value of your business as well. At the very end, there will be a Q&A that my fellow LaunchPoint partners, who I believe should be on the call, Eric and Damon, will be assisting me with because they are just significantly smarter than I am. And that one isn't even a joke. When they start talking, you'll wonder why they weren't hosting this. And of course, we'll provide some contact information so that you'll be able to reach out to us if you're looking for a more in-depth conversation. Every business is unique. And so there's going to be a lot that we're not going to be able to cover on this, but we're available to you anytime you need us. So in order to make sure we have enough time for good Q&A, I will be flowing through each section. So I encourage you, write down your questions if you have any so that we can cover them all at the end. Sound good? Awesomeness. So how am I doing today? I'm sure this is a question you ask about your business more often than not. And if you're like most, you probably answer this by taking a look at your bank account. Honestly, not the worst idea, but that doesn't show the whole picture, and it can be terrifying at times. And I know it's spooky season, but that's not the kind of fear any of us really need. I know when I look at my bank account, I cry a little bit, and I don't think that's healthy. So let's find a better way to answer that question by talking about working capital. Working capital refers to your company's ability to meet debts on time. It's a straightforward calculation, nicely displayed on your screen. You sum up your cash, all of your inventory, and your accounts receivable, which is basically the money just owed from sales. And then you divide that by your total debts. This snapshot will help gauge your financial preparedness. This is going to let you know how prepared you are right now to cover all of your business expenses. Obviously, your goal here is to have more money on hand than debts owed. The higher that ratio, the better the signs are that you're in a healthy position. Pro tip for me, try to keep all these measurements in percentage terms. It makes it a lot easier to visualize and understand how you're doing. At least it helps for me. Right, so up next, we have profitability, which is the measure I'm sure most of you are most aware of. How much is coming in versus how much is going out. What you may not know is that there are actually two different standard ratios that you're going to need to understand depending on your business model, and that's your gross profit margins and your net profit margins. Gross profit margins, for those of you who are running a business that requires the manufacturing of goods or where you're physically providing a service, that's calculated by subtracting the cost of the goods sold from net sales. This figure is then divided by net sales to receive your margin in percentage terms, which, as I mentioned, just makes it a lot easier to visualize how things are actually going. Next, we have net profit margin, which will be important for all businesses. And this is calculated by taking your revenue and subtracting your operating expenses and dividing that by your revenue. In both cases, you're going to want your ratio, that percentage outcome, to be as high as possible. The higher it is, the better. This is going to be different for each organization. If you're providing a service to clients that takes up your physical time, or you're manufacturing goods to be sold, you're going to have a lower ratio than a business that does not have a cost of production. Think of a business that developed a phone app. Once that app is built, there is no longer cost of production, so their profit margin will be much higher than someone who has manufacturing costs. Hopefully, everyone's still with me. Now, I can imagine most of this means nothing if you don't know what to aim for. And as a new business, or even as a growing business, it can be hard to figure out what margins should I be aiming for. And if I didn't tell you what that would be, that'd be quite mean of me, and that's against my nature. So let's talk about these margins and where you should be aiming. As I mentioned, it's different depending on your business. When it comes to working capital, you're going to want to aim for 200%. And I know that sounds high, and it is. But keep in mind, this is the measure of your ability to cover your short-term expenses. You want that to be high. You need to be prepared for the unexpected. I mean, think about what just happened recently. How many people lost their businesses? How many others lost their jobs? 200% is a solid goal to keep in mind. It's a solid goal to aim for to keep yourself and your business safe. Now, jumping into net profit margins, which is a bit different and will very much depend on your unique business. For example, the average margin for a beauty salon is around 8%, with some of the more efficient salons reaching upward of 17%. For a bakery, the average is between 4 and 9% because ingredients can be quite expensive. On the other hand, coffee shop, the average is over 90% for a cup of coffee. To be fair, though, we're not talking about fancy lattes. We're talking about your regular cup of Joe. So keep in mind, your business is going to be unique. Your profit margins will be just as unique. And the point of all this is understanding this information is just the starting point. From here, you'll continuously monitor your status. You're going to use that information to gauge how changes that you make to your business impact your business. And then finally, gross profit margin for a newer business that's still establishing its footprint. Keeping your margin between 7 and 10% is a great starting point. And honestly, it starts with just tracking this information, knowing how you're doing, being able to say, how am I doing today? And knowing I'm between 7 and 10%, that's great. How can I get myself to 15%, 20% and beyond? As you grow and learn how to make sense of this information, you're going to understand how the changes you make impact your business. The changes you make to your pricing, your manufacturing process, and so many other variables. You're going to begin to see that grow too. So hopefully everyone's still with me. Still a lot more to cover. So prepare to understand how we're doing today, and that's awesome. We love it. But today isn't usually what keeps us up at night. So what about tomorrow? Let's talk about how we can take today and forecast that out into the future. And now you may be wondering why I would need to do that. And I'm willing to bet already that you've probably made some decisions for your business without truly understanding the potential impact it will have, without using any data. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for any entrepreneur. I want you to be safe and prepared. I want to limit risks by allowing you the ability to say, okay, if I do this, what could happen? So I also do want to call out that your ability to do this heavily depends on historical data. And I mean a lot of historical data. The further back you look, the more accurate you will be looking forward. So by taking care to note and track how you're progressing day over day, week over week, month over month, year over year, the safer you'll be. If you're trying to determine how things are going to look a year out and you're working with a month's worth of data, and I've seen entrepreneurs try to do this, you're almost literally shooting in the dark. It takes a long time to be in a position to accurately forecast that far out in the future. The general rule is 6 to 1. If you want to project a month out, you're going to want to have 6 months worth of historical data to do that. And I know I'm a pain. I just said you should aim for 200% margin, which is very high. And now I'm saying you'd have 6x of whatever you're looking to for your future projection to be. And, you know, I never promised I would be sharing fun and happy information, just information that is going to help ensure you and your business are well taken care of. At the end of the day, that's what matters. I want to make sure, I want more businesses to survive and live and thrive. So yes, you need a great deal of data to make projections, but keep in mind, this is going to lower your risk and it's going to help you make the best possible decisions with the most accurate data. So let's talk about revenue projections, because all that talking was literally just the introduction to that slide. So revenue projection is a great way to plan for the future and make decisions that will impact your tomorrow. Revenue projection will represent the money your business is going to earn in the future. There are a few key metrics you'll want to keep an eye on when creating these projections. First, super simple, total number of customers. That's it. It's that simple. Understanding how many customers you had yesterday, last week, last month, and if you're gaining or losing customers. Next, you're going to track monthly recurring revenue. This represents the total amount of recurring revenue you generate from customers every month. Now, unlike net income, this is the measure of income that is coming from repeat customers each month. Think of someone who's on a subscription, a client who comes in once a month for a haircut, or a house that gets his lawn taken care of each month. These would all be considered in your MRR calculations. So if you have a customer that comes in, that came in 2 weeks ago, hasn't come back in again, you're not going to count them into this calculation. Next, calculating your month-over-month growth. This super simple, helps you see how you're trending. It'll be a basis for how you project out in the future. And again, different for each business. If your business is impacted by seasons or holidays, you're going to want to keep that in mind, and you're going to want to keep track of that. Most of your B2C retail shops may see a big increase during the holidays, while other businesses, like those that operate outdoors, may see a significant drop in the colder months. These are things that you're going to want to take into consideration as you think about the future. Businesses are all unique. How you operate is going to be different. So that's why we trend. That's why we keep track of all this data, so we understand what's going on. And then finally, we have revenue churn. This is how many customers leave your service each month, how many leave your business, or how many stop returning. Obviously, should be no surprise, the lower the better, but we need to track that. And we also want to understand why we're losing these customers. All of this is just to understand, the goal is understanding how you are trending. Are you growing your customer base? Are you holding on to those customers? Today looks great. Let's make sure tomorrow does too. It takes a lot of time to do this accurately. Obviously, I just said you have to have it's a 6-to-1 ratio, but doing it today puts you in a position where you could start making these projections and start planning out for the future. You need the data to support your decisions. So revenue projecting does take time. The benefit is it tells you where you can invest without fear that you may break the bank. And I didn't realize this, and I'm not a math person, but yeah, growing a business, a lot more math than I anticipated. And I'm horrible at math, so that's why I'm lucky I have Eric on my team here that does all that and oversees all that math stuff. So love you, buddy. Now, next few slides, we're going to learn how to evaluate the current value of your business. And there's several methodologies for this. I mean, there are so many. So I'm going to focus on the top 4 most commonly used, because even with a full hour, there's not enough to cover every single method out there. But first, why do we need to know this information? Well, personally, I think right now LaunchPoint is worth $1 billion. And I'd like to think each of you think just as highly of your business. Unfortunately, though, much like our pets, we tend to think our businesses are the most adorable, when in reality, they might not be. So the reality is that understanding the value of your business with a well-rounded perspective is crucial for a multitude of reasons, just a few of which I have listed here. If you're considering selling your business or acquiring another, knowing its value helps you in negotiations and setting fair terms. Investors want to know the value of your business before investing. If I were to go to an investor right now and say, yep, we're worth $1 billion, well, they're probably not going to want to work with me. They're not going to want to invest in me, and they're never going to trust me. Having an accurate evaluation, it enhances your credibility and your negotiation power. Understanding your business's value informs strategic decisions like expansions, diversifications, focusing on core strengths. Proper insurance coverage depends on the valuation to ensure adequate protection. You don't want to be covered for $100,000 when you're running $1 million enterprise. Likewise, you don't want to pay for $1 million worth of coverage if your business is worth $100K. Finally, At least for this list, knowing your business's value can be a major motivator. Knowing can help push you to enhance your worth and achieve financial goals. I know LaunchPoint isn't worth $1 billion, but I'll be damn sure to get us there, especially if it's because I get to work with entrepreneurs like all of you. It's awesome. So understanding your business's value, it's the cornerstone for informed decision making. With that said, I'm going to kick things off with looking at asset-based approach, which is calculated by taking take into account both your tangible and intangible assets and then deducting your liabilities. Tangible assets include physical items like your equipment, real estate, inventory, and cash. They have a clear market price. They're easy to value. Intangibles, on the other hand, they're non-physical elements of your business. Think of things like your intellectual property, your brand recognition, your customer relationships is a big one as well. Evaluating intangibles is complex, and it will involve estimating their future earning potentials as well. For example, if your customer base is continuously on the rise, that's that intangible, then you know that means your revenue, that tangible, is going to increase. So be sure to keep that in mind when you're going through this methodology. This approach might not reflect the full potential value of your business, but it will give you an idea as to where you stand today. And I will say, of all the methodologies, this is the easiest one that you're going to work with. Next, we have the market-based approach. This approach can kind of feel like cheating, and I know that I just said the previous method was the easiest, but that's because I don't condone cheating. I'm just going to explain to you how to do it. When using the market-based approach to value your business, you're basically looking at what similar businesses have sold for recently. You find a business like yours, see how much it sold for, and then you use that information to estimate your own business's value. It's like checking the price of a similar house to figure out how much your house might be worth. Just remember to adjust for any differences between your business and the one you're comparing it to. You'll want to pay attention to how your business is currently performing against how that business performed in regards to both customer growth and market trends. I like to think of it as like, the house next door might not have as nice of a front porch as mine. So I got to remember to factor that in. Your business may be physically located in an area that has more foot traffic, making it more valuable. So keep in mind to factor those in. Next, we have the earnings or income-based approach, which involves understanding your earning potential and using that to estimate your business's value. And this one does have a touch of complexity to it. So I'm going to explain the concept, and then I'm going to give it a little example to hopefully clear some of it up. You'll start using your business's historical data and projected earnings. It is, again, something we just learned to do earlier in the workshop to estimate your future income. Once you have that number, you need to decide on a capitalization or cap rate. This is the rate of return you want on your investment. This is going to reflect the risk and return associated with your business. So the higher the cap rate, the higher the perceived risk, while a lower cap rate indicates a lower risk. And similar to what I've been saying earlier, it's going to be different for each business. Your cap rate is generally calculated by taking your net operating income and dividing your current market value. Current market value, if you recall, methodology we just discussed a month ago, just discussed a slide ago. And I know it's a lot of information. So I hope everyone's still with me, because now we're going to divide all of that by our capitalization rate, and this is going to give you the estimated value of your business. For example, and as I said, I hope this clears up the concept a little bit, because I know it's a little bit more challenging. There's more to do here. But let's say your business has an expected income of $100,000, and you choose a capitalization rate of 10%. That means that your business value would be the $100,000 divided by the 10%, leaving you at $1 million value. Depending on the specific circumstances, you might need to make adjustments for calculated risk. This could include factors like your market trends, unique risks, and any kind of extraordinary earnings. Now, this one's a bit of a doozy. So I was kind that I saved it for last. Anytime you're dealing with intangibles, understand there is no perfect science. This method is known as the intangible asset valuation and risk assessment method. The name alone makes me want to delete this slide. I don't like it, but we're going to go through it. For this calculation, you'll need to first identify the special things about your business that might not be physical, like your brand name, how much customers like you, any special ideas you have. Then try to guess, and yes, you will try to guess how much these special things are worth. There's different ways you can use to guess, like looking at what similar things have sold for, thinking about how much money they could make for your business. There's a multitude of ways of doing this, but you're going to look at it and you're going to guess, what is this value? you'll want to think about anything that could be a risk for these special things as well. Like if a competitor starts doing something similar, or if regulatory laws change, how will this impact my business? How much impact will it have if a law changes right now and all of a sudden you have to do something completely different? I mean, think of what just happened with COVID. All those changes in how customers had to interact affected so many businesses. You'll want to keep things like that in mind. So finally, you're going to put everything together. The good thing about your business, how much it could be worth and how risky it might be. This will give you a better idea of how much your whole business might be worth. And I can tell by a lot of these faces, this comes across as the most ridiculous sounding method there is, but I assure you it is a real method that's used to take into consideration all aspects of your business, not just the physical, not just the intangible, but things that are just unique specifically to you. It goes beyond your service. It goes beyond your product. It's what makes your business truly unique. What I haven't shared yet is that this is going to be true of all of these methodologies, is that you're going to be using multiple methodologies at the same time. Otherwise, I would have just left it at the asset-based approach and saved all of us a headache. Most experts will use what is known as the triangulation method. This allows them to cross-check multiple methodologies in order to come to the closest, most accurate assessment. Of the methods I've shared with you today, these are the ones that are most likely to be used. And as I mentioned, there are so many out there. So if you're not happy with any of these, there's so many out there that you can look at. Just know that you're going to want to use at least 3 to make sure that you have the most accurate assessment. And with that, I'm going to say thank you to everyone for attending and giving me the opportunity to do what I love. I know there's going to be so many questions, which is why I want to get to the Q&A as quickly as possible with my team so that we can start helping and giving some good guidance here. So I hope my team can get off mute. And then on this slide, you'll see our website. I would encourage you to check it out, see if there's anything we could do additional to help. My email address is there. If you want to connect one-on-one to discuss things in more detail, reach out to me directly. So let's get this Q&A started. And I'm just gonna sit and smile, yeah.
Fantastic, Brandon. Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, feel free to either unmute. You can put them in the chat directly. You can use the hand raise signal, whatever works best for you all.
So I think this is the fastest I've gone through the workshop.
Right, Brandon, what are some of the pitfalls that you see that folks might encounter as they're trying to do some of this work, where they're maybe not paying attention to the right data or not understanding how it's impacting? I know I've seen in a lot of experience with entrepreneurs, we very rarely account for even our own time, how much time it takes to do the work. Any insights there on things that we should avoid?
Right. So it's a lot to answer with that question. So one of the biggest pitfalls I see entrepreneurs make is they give up on tracking. They use data to make a decision, but then they stop tracking how that decision impacted their business. And they ignore that, okay, if I purchase this software because it's going to help me with increased outreach, is the price of that software being factored in to how much benefit you're actually getting from the software? Are you actually pulling in more customers? Are you increasing your engagement because of that? A lot of organizations will let go of that. They'll see the impact and they'll say, oh, we're making more money. But are you making enough money to justify having that software? Maybe there's another software out there that can do just exactly what you need and it's cheaper. That's one I see. And then when it comes to individuals that are running consultancies, they'll look at it from an hourly perspective, and that can be very challenging to look at. I encourage individuals to look at what is that finalized product? How much would that cost? Because one of the reasons why someone might choose to use you is because something that could take one consultant 5 hours to do, you can do in an hour. But you shouldn't make less money than that other consultant because of that. You're more efficient, you're potentially better than them at doing that work. Don't look at it from an hourly perspective. Look at it like, how much would this finished product actually be worth to that business, and charge based on that. So we have a question in the chat, and we're okay. Most MR calculations are for software, other kind of subscription model. How to project for a manufacturing company, just like an average. MR calculations are software. Project manufacturing company. That's a good question. Let me see if I can. This is why my more intelligent team members normally jump in. So MR calculations, they are usually for software. It is a little bit, it would be a little bit more challenging to do it for a manufacturing company. Yeah, I'll have to give that some thought. Dana, I'll follow up with you on that.
Sorry about that. I was having a problem unmuting here, Brandon. By the way, guys, my name's Damon. I'm co-founder with Brandon for LaunchPoint. And Dana, to answer your question, yes, it's a little more complicated. The reality is, though, a lot of the same approach still applies, right? You're gonna have to account for far more when you're talking about raw products. You're talking about supply chains. You're talking about the shipping logistics for getting your products both in and out the door. A physical product is a far different thing to deal with than, say, a service, right? And so, to Brandon's point, you want to make sure that you're collecting all the data that you possibly can, tracking it as much as you can. Then you're able to start creating an understanding of how much am I paying for these products? How much am I paying for the raw products to actually create what I am creating for shipping? And those, that's when you're able to start understanding and creating a plan as far as, can I sharpen some things? Can I talk about building relationships with other manufacturers, other suppliers, other shipping logistics partners, those sorts of things. So the same approach is the approach is very similar. You're just going to have in many ways, far more things to keep track of. And I hope that helps.
Thank you, David. I didn't realize you were on the call.
Yes, sorry about that. I was running a minute late. I wanted to make sure I made it on here to support the team.
Oh, yeah. Damn, you all thought I was joking when I said my team members are smarter.
I have moments. They're fleeting at best.
Yeah, if we don't have questions, and you think of some things later, please reach out to us via the website. Reach out to me directly. Yeah, oftentimes we have individuals reach out afterwards when they have time to digest the ton of information and methodologies I shared.
Wait, there's another one there.
Oh,
Good time, Justin. Thanks.
there we go. Okay.
Yes, hey Brandon. This is Tony, and I'm sorry, I'm on the road, so I hope you don't mind if I am not on camera. So Brandon, I think I have two questions. The first one is like, in terms of like some good practice for us as like the CEO entrepreneur, just to kind of come and visit often on how we can do better in finance, like what kind of exercise we should do, and maybe this should be like monthly, quarterly, or like every segment. The reason I'm asking this, I don't know how about you, but like I think when we keep our head down just working on business and we just go and go and go, and then we forget asking ourselves like what we can do better, like where we can optimize the cost more and where we can do anything more. So any like exercise that we should consider to do, I think that's number one. And then number two is like in terms of the software for us just to tracking kind of like the business expand and stuff. And because like my business, I'm registered in Vietnam. I do some practice in the US, but I registered in Vietnam. So I did not have a chance to use QuickBook, but I heard that a good one in the US. So I'm consider about that. So maybe the first one in common practice, and second one in terms of the software that will provide us the good data, and so we can revisit and to know where we can do better with our financial management.
Perfect. Absolutely. No, great question. So for the first one, you're gonna want to look at it every day, and you're gonna want to be in a position where you get used to doing that. Larger organizations have entire departments that their job is to keep an eye on money going in, money going out, how it's being spent. Being a solopreneur or even being in a small business owner, oftentimes we neglect to look at those financials until we absolutely have to. When it's time to make a purchasing decision, when it's time to make a hiring decision, then we look at those numbers. You're going to want to look at them all the time, every day. I know my team and I, we meet several times a week, and we always pull up our books and we look to see, how are we looking this month? What does next month look like? What does next quarter look like? So we understand what's coming in the future. The more that you get into that habit, the better off you'll be. And the more you get used to tracking and seeing how decisions impact, the better off you'll be as well. You might be in a position where you're making a decision to purchase software for the first time. If you've never done it before, you're not going to know how it's going to impact your business. But once you start doing it and tracking, okay, how did this purchase impact the growth of my business? How did it impact the numbers coming in, going out? The next time you go to make a software purchase, you'll know what to expect. You'll know what to look for. In terms of software, there's a lot of software out there. There's a lot of software. My recommendation is always to check for free services. There's a ton of free services or very low-cost services that are designed to support entrepreneurs and small businesses. Look at the reviews. See what people are saying about these businesses. There's a lot of sites, like G2 is one of them, that will compare all of these services, and you'll get to see real feedback from their customer base that will give a realistic understanding of what that software is actually like to use. Some will claim that they're free and low cost, but that's because they offer a free trial, and then all of a sudden you're paying $50+ a month per user for a software that you anticipated being free. But there is a lot. There's a lot of services out there. I would take your time reviewing them, and yeah, doing that's probably the best way to make a decision as to what software is going to be best suitable for you.
Thank you, Brandon. It's very helpful. So, just to make sure, so you said the website is Z2, right? Just to see the review.
So there are many websites like this. One of them is called G2, and what that site does is it compares from it's kind of like I believe it's Angie's List, that allows people to say, I've used this product. This was my experience with the product. And so you'll be able to look at that, and you'll be able to see all the individuals that have used the product, that have gone in and given their reviews of it, both positive and negative. And it'll also provide you a list of some of the competitors, so you can compare them back to back with each other.
Okay, wow, that's great. Thank you, Brandon. And in terms of software, I don't want you to maybe it's in the top spot to make recommendation, but what are some top three? I mean, from your experience or you see out there, if you don't mind the name, yeah.
So I wish Eric was on the call, because he's the one who oversees all the financials.
Yes.
To jump in real quick, so QuickBooks, to answer your original question, like QuickBooks is perfectly good. It's obviously a very good piece of software, and it's commonly used. It helps with taxes, all of those things. So not a terrible thing to check out. Something that Brandon mentioned also is that you will eventually have to pay for some software, and so understanding it's like, where is the value, and possibly paying for that kind of software like a QuickBooks or something of that nature. That being said, there's a couple, as Brandon said, there's a couple pieces of software out there that are pretty popular. It really depends on what you're doing. Are you just doing like accounting? Are you just like, what are you trying? Sorry for the question back to you. Like, what are you specifically trying to do? Is it full bookkeeping? Is it, what are you trying to manage and account for? And that'll help me maybe give you a better response.
Yes, so I think the first one is like, a core bookkeeping, and the second one like accounting, like building income statement stuff. And I think finally it would be like, maybe if there's something that they can run some kind of ratio, some kind of data, so I can know maybe this is the area that I can do a better job. Maybe there's some insight if they have that ability. I don't know. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
No, gotcha. That's very, very helpful. And one of the things I want to sort of preface this with is, we want to be careful with necessarily making recommendations and pointing you in the wrong direction. You may have a bad experience and blame us for it, but all things considered, there are a couple options out there. Like Wave Accounting is something that's generally free. It's a low, it's very, very simple. Depending on the platform that you're working on, as far as like where you're running your business out of, there's something called, what is it called? Odoo, I think it is. It has some integrations that are accounting based. ZipBooks is something familiar for MacBook users or Mac users. There's an inventory management one. I think it was Profit Books. So now, that being said, like Brandon said, I would say do some research and base your research on what your business is doing. There's, the options that I threw out there, of course, they're out there. They're generally free. The free options are going to be very low bar. It's going to be sort of very basic account keeping and bookkeeping. When Dan is mentioning Zoho is another one. I think Zoho is only a trial free at the beginning, but another common piece of software. And for instance, when Brandon and I met years ago, I was working for a small startup, and they ran literally everything out of Google Sheets. It is not uncommon for small companies, entrepreneurs, and you may be doing it today, running out of Google Sheets, and there's nothing wrong with that. It has a good deal of flexibility and a lot of different pieces of software that are really good and free, obviously. So there's nothing wrong with trying to operate as much as you can out of that kind of platform. Again, trying to keep your costs as low as possible. But accounting obviously is a difficult thing, depending on, it can be made more difficult by, for instance, if you're doing manufacturing and you have physical products and you're trying to track the costs therein, and trying to track your revenue. But so yeah, I would highly recommend, there's definitely a good deal of research. I would recommend, plugging in and understanding what your business is doing and what you're trying to do and what your goals are. And like Brandon said, there are a couple free options. Check them out. Since they're free, doesn't cost anything. Check them out, try them out, see how they work for you, and move on to the next one if it's giving you any issues. Yeah, I think that's the kind of direction we can sort of point you in at this point.
Yeah, thank you, Damon, Brandon, and Dana. I think it's give me a great start. So thank you so much.
Happy to help.
Looks like we had another question come in via the chat, and I love this question because it's definitely one to think about. Essentially, if you're using the asset-based approach, that's going to give you a very realistic look into the potential value of your business. But then the other methodologies I talked about include intangibles and some guesswork. So how do you go about using those methodologies and not being biased and thinking that, my services are worth so much more than, they probably are, and now seeing that your asset-based approach, which is more realistic, isn't hindered by the bias that you may have towards your own company. It is my best recommendation to avoid that pitfall is, if you're not able to have that conversation with yourself of like, hey, you know what, I know this, I love it, I think it's the best, it's probably not worth this much. Have other people look at it too, others within your business, see how much they would pay for that, whether it's the service, help them establish the value of your business. I mean, have that conversation with somebody who is not biased, is going to give you real feedback. I do that all the time with my team. If I'm sending out an email to somebody and I'm like, oh, this is a great email, I always have them look it over because they're going to see it from a different perspective than I do. It's kind of like what I said earlier. Like I'd like to think that, LaunchPoint is worth $1 billion. If I went to and said that to an investor, they'd laugh at me. Actually, if I wouldn't even laugh at me, they would just like throw me out of the building. It's hard not to view your business that way, though. I get it. It's your baby. It's your goal. You're building up your dream. So I think the best way to avoid it is sitting down with others and helping them give you a more realistic perspective. We've got another question in. Mentioned that better company valuation could increase how investors perceive your company, given that it's inevitable to make some estimations in certain areas of computation. Is lowballing better than? I'm going to say low. You don't want to lowball. I wouldn't. I mean, Damon, you can tell me if I'm wrong. I wouldn't want to go in lowballing because that investor wants to know that you believe in your business, that they're going to want to see that you have faith in your business. And if anything, I would think going a little higher is better than not. If I'm talking to somebody about their business and they're clearly lowballing it and they're not talking about it, not showcasing it in a way that I'm like, oh wow, they really believe in what they have, why would I invest? So it's kind of a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with, they're hesitant for sales. They're hesitant to go out and sell because they're not comfortable talking about themselves, not comfortable talking about their product, and it can be scary. And then once you get over that and you realize you can brag about yourself, you can talk about the great things that you do and the amazing services that you offer, people are going to respond to that. It's similar here. Go in with confidence. Go in if you have the data to back why you're saying what you're saying and why you have the values that you have, the valuation that you have. It should give you confidence to go in with an accurate number. But I would never recommend lowballing. We have 18 minutes and I'm happy to stand here and stare at everyone.
Awesome, y'all. As much fun as this has been, I don't think you need to stand there for 18 minutes. Thank you so much, Brandon and Damon, for joining us today from LaunchPoint. LaunchPoint Labs, as you all see, the contact information is available there. We'll be running a series of sessions with LaunchPoint Labs around these kinds of topics and other areas of their expertise. So please make sure to keep an eye out on our Start Out social media posts and emails as we keep planning these out. Thank you both very much for being with us, and for everybody that joined us today. We appreciate your insights. Hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.